Hi, this is Blaine Cluten for Cluten Law. Answering the question today, can the executor decide who gets what? So to clarify this a little bit, what we have is a person that's passed away and there's a personal representative or executor. In Oregon, it's called a personal representative, but executor means the same thing, of an estate. And the person asking the question wants to know, can the executor decide who's going to get what? So the first answer to this is that the executor is under a duty, a fiduciary duty, generally to follow the terms of the will. So the first answer is that the will itself is going to control who gets what. And the power and extent of that power that the executor has is outlined by the will itself. And then if there's a question, then we look to the statute. So again, generally the executor's duties is to take all control of the property within the estate, and then pay off any of the last remaining debts, and then distribute the property according to the terms of the will. Now, let's break this down into one of the most commonly seen methods or questions about what happens. And that's the difference between distribution of personal property and distribution of the remainder of the estate, also called the residue of the estate. Now, if anybody's done a Secret Santa or a fantasy draft, we kind of understand generally that what happens is that somebody's given a number sequential order and then they get first pick. Now, a lot of times the personal representative will employ a standard similar to this, so that if there's multiple people picking items of personal property from a decedent's residence, for instance, that we're going to employ some sort of draft or draw straws to figure out who's going to pick which item first. And then typically you'll go through the house in that predefined order and pick out items one by one until there's nothing remaining or nobody is interested in having those first picks anymore. The personal representative executor does not have an obligation generally, and again, you're going to have to look to the terms of the will, that each piece of personal property must exactly equal another piece of personal property. So you can have a piece of china and perhaps it's worth a very, very little, but it has a great sentimental value. And then another person is taking something that's an electronic and it's has much higher market value, but those things don't necessarily need to equalize in value, just kind of depending on the terms of the will. And the executor usually has the power to make those choices, and they don't have to give everything of equal exact value, especially when it comes to those personal property items. Now, as far as the residue or remainder of the estate, oftentimes what it will say is that shares, or if it doesn't talk about shares, it just talks about multiple heirs. What it looks for is substantially equal portions. This doesn't mean necessarily exactly equal portions. And what you might see is if one person's interested in getting a piece of real property, a house for instance, and then another person is going to be taking a bank account, and sometimes it can be hard to understand the difference between those two, especially when you're determining the real market value of the property itself. Those don't have to exactly equal. So those are general outlines for what might happen between the personal property versus real property, and the executor making the decision in that. Again, it's going to be determined by the will itself, and if it's not defined by the will itself, then you're going to look to the Oregon Revised Statute. This is Blaine Cluten for Cluten Law. Thank you.